Guys, King Ryan Garcia got up off his butt in the second round and scored a great 7th round TKO. Nick and I are talking about that and who he might fight right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, we have a couple of weeks before MMA really kicks back off, but to start the year, we still got a great boxing match nonetheless. We had Ryan Garcia in his biggest test yet. It happened here in Texas, in Dallas, American Airlines Arena. He took on an Olympic gold medalist, Luke Campbell, and really showed a lot of heart and ability to overcome adversity by getting up off his butt in the second round and scoring that TKO finish with the body shot.
Yeah, looked great. There was a lot of questions around Ryan Garcia coming into this, and I think there's still a lot about Ryan Garcia and where he goes and how he stacks up against the top of the heap in his weight classes and as far as boxing. But Luke Campbell was by far the biggest test. We've seen him in the ring with some of the biggest boxers and the best that his division has to offer. So to see him perform even better than some of the top level boxers have against Luke Campbell speaks volume on him, and I think that he is the real deal.
Yeah, I would agree. I was very impressed with his performance. You know, what really got me was his output. He from the beginning of the fight, you know, most professional, especially most high-profile boxing matches, you know, the first round, 2 rounds, sometimes even 3 rounds is a bit of a feeling out period. Ryan Garcia came out with a crazy amount of volume right from the gate, and you could see that Luke Campbell's game plan was to sort of stay back, stay behind his jab, and he found a lot of success with a body shot. And so he would throw a jab up, realize that Garcia's his guard was a little high, and he would score a very powerful body shot, which I think is what set up the knockdown in the second round. He hit Ryan with a few really good body shots that found their place on the soft spot, like right kind of in the plex area. And what that did was it caused Ryan to drop his hands ever so slightly when he thought that body shot was coming, and Campbell brought the same shot over top, and that's what put Ryan down in what was a very, very good knockdown. It looked a lot worse in the moment than it ended up being. I was like, oh, wow, that might have actually ended the fight. Garcia might be out here. Nevertheless, Garcia made the adjustments. He was able to absorb several more tough body shots, but he never allowed Campbell to find that clean shot again. And then he went to work with some body shots of his own and landed a really nice liver shot, which ultimately ended the fight. So, I mean, Luke Campbell was an Olympic gold medalist. This is a guy that's no slouch. You know, he was in there with Lomachenko, won some rounds against Lomachenko, and say what you will about Loma now, seeing his performance with Teofimo, but this was a guy in a certain period of time in which people were talking about him being the best boxer on the planet. Now, whether that was the case at the time or not, probably not, but nevertheless, he was a top guy. And for Campbell to win rounds against him and then Garcia to come out and take him out in the 7th round, I think shows that Ryan Garcia is at least in the discussion for serious fighters in those divisions.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of young, hungry fighters and people like Ryan Garcia in that 130, 135 range, even 140. So I'd like to see those guys get matched up sooner than later. The obvious pairings are Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, and then they've got some legends of the sport that are still hanging around that they can utilize to lift their names up, like a Manny Pacquiao and those types of people that I think eventually we'll see them get in the ring with. It's all has to do with the promoters, and if they keep these guys away from each other, then they're just going to grow and get older and older, and we're never going to see the big fights that we want to see. And in boxing, if you lose one fight, then that kind of takes all your chances away of fighting another undefeated title holder or champion. So I would like to see these fights with these young stars happen sooner than later. And as far as the fight last night, Ryan Garcia looked super good. Campbell looked super good.
Yeah.
I think that Ryan hasn't had to give much respect to any of his opponents before this fight, and that's why he got caught. He was able to fight with his hands a little bit down, chin a little bit up, and not really give his opponents as much credit as they may have deserved or may have not deserved. Luke Campbell deserved the credit, and Ryan Garcia realized that early in the fight and was able to protect himself wisely. And I think he's going to learn a lot from that experience in the ring with Luke Campbell. I mean, he was crying afterwards. That tells you that he knows he was in a real war, and it proved to himself that he's a legit fighter. Because if you fight people and you just, after you win 20 fights in a row and all of them are most of them are by knockouts, you start to wonder, am I really this good, or is the competition just not quite up to snuff? Luke Campbell is very, very good, and for him to get a victory the way he did, he should feel very, very impressed with himself.
Yeah, I think so. And no matter what people say, when you have a following as big as Ryan Garcia does, and you're this person that's in the public figure, you've got girls that like you, you're going to have an element of jealousy from other people that don't like you just for the simple fact that you're young, you're rich, you're famous, and you have girls that like you. That's just a reality. And Ryan Garcia, even though he puts on a good front and says that the hate and the negativity and all that doesn't really bother him, we all know that everybody's human. And after a while, regardless of what you say, it does start to wear on you, especially being a young man of his age. Seeing all the people saying, oh, he's a hype job, he's an Instagram boxer, he's a step above the Paul brothers and a YouTube boxer. To come out and get a knockout victory over an Olympic gold medalist, I think that's where the tears came from. I think he, as you said, proved it to himself that he does belong in the conversation for the best in these divisions right now. And he showed that to the world last night. And I think when you see the output, that the amount of volume and head hunting he did when he had Campbell hurt after his knockdown showed you that he was ready to get that fight over. He was like, wow, I got hurt, I got rocked, I got dropped, and I need to get this guy out of there because I gotta get him out of there because I don't want to be in this ring with him anymore. This guy's the real deal, and I'm going to prove to myself and to all my doubters out there that I can beat him. Yeah. Now, calling out Tank Davis, I think that took an incredible amount of courage. Tank Davis is a stone-cold killer. Tank Davis is like Deontay Wilder of the 130 division, except with a lot more technical skill. I mean, he is absolutely a knockout artist. What he did to Leo Santa Cruz, just stepping in, not respecting the power at all of Santa Cruz, getting him against the ropes and just landing that uppercut that just shut the lights out. For Garcia to see that and then a couple weeks later call him out and say, I want to fight that guy and I want to fight him now, I give him some respect for that. Yeah, you have to give him respect. And everybody is going into this fight with the narrative of, oh, Gervonta Davis is the knockout specialist of the two. And while he is, nobody realizes that Ryan Garcia is pretty much the knockout artist, the exact same knockout artist that Gervonta Davis is. You can't say that he isn't. When he went into last night's fight 20-0 with 18 knockouts. Right. That is, by definition, a knockout artist. He has the crazy power. It's not like he's taking all these fights into decisions. I think Gervonta has around the same amount of fights and around the same amount of knockouts. So they're very similar, even though their body looks different, their fighting style is very different. Their finishing methods are very similar. And, just looking at them on paper and even just doing the eyes test, of course everybody goes, oh, well, that guy's got the knockout power, and this guy is a pretty boy. Is the pretty boy. But he's got just as many knockouts. His ratio is the exact same. And Gervonta Davis, I would venture to say their punches are very close to the same in strength level. They're very close in speed. Ryan Garcia is very, very fast, but so is Tank. And they're equal in their maturity level. Their ringmanship and all that stuff is very similar. Ryan Garcia shows some serious ringmanship and some boxing smarts that Gervonta Davis also shows. So, the narrative around Gervonta Davis being astronomically further advanced is starting to seem like kind of a far-fetched concept. Yeah, exactly. And for me, I went into it a few fights ago thinking that was the same thing, but now I look at Ryan Garcia and think he's on the same playing field as Gervonta Davis. No question, he's on the same playing field. And now I agree with everything you said. The only thing that I would say does differentiate them as fighters would be the fact that Ryan Garcia's knockouts don't seem to be as vicious in nature as some of Gervonta Davis's. Yes, they probably have the same amount of the knockouts to fight ratio, but the amount of just vicious step away, the opponent is sleeping on the ground, that I would give a slight edge to Gervonta. Obviously, Ryan's going to have the height and reach advantage. if we're looking forward to this fight, which boxing, please get this one right. All the promotions, please, I hope they get this one right. Don't make these guys take 37 more fights before you put them in there together. These are two young guys or two exciting guys. You put them together, you got a nice pay-per-view. Do it now. Let these guys be warriors. Let it be a trilogy. Whatever the case may be, let this fight happen and let it happen soon. I am favoring Tank to win that fight if they make it like in the next 6 months. I think Tank's got just a little bit crisper shots. I think he does hit with a little bit more of a pop on them, and I think that Tank would probably catch a late finish if I'm predicting. But I do think that it's a much more competitive fight after what I saw last night than I did going into last night.
Yeah, it's too close for me to tell. One thing I can say is that if they do make that fight, it's going to be a trilogy. It's not going to happen for another at least year or 2 years, in my opinion. That's just how boxing works.
Yep.
And I think
unfortunately.
And I think that if you're a betting person, go ahead and bet on it being a draw so they can run that 2 more times over, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to protect those O's. I have no problem with any of that.
I hate that I have to agree with you on that because that's what they do in boxing.
That's what will happen.
Unless a knockout happens. And I do think Tank will be seeking the knockout.
Of course. Well, so will Ryan. I mean, I look at his record. I'd have to go back and see how many people he has finished. I don't know off the top of my head of the 18 or 19 knockouts he has, how many are, KOs versus TKOs and vice versa for Gervonta. I'm not really sure. I will say that as far as discipline, it appears Ryan Garcia does have the edge in that department, and he's making leaps and bounds in his progress. I think faster than almost anybody in the sport. He's working with Canelo and working with that boxing school, which is fantastic. And they've got something special going on. We see it a lot in MMA where you have a camp that's just doing all the right things, and they're doing it, and he is learning from the best in the game in Canelo and the best in the game in his coaches. Gervonta, he's a great fighter, a great natural. He has Floyd Mayweather in his corner, but at times I feel like his discipline and his dedication, it tends to wander, and he tends to get a little bit lost in the
sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to totally depend. Are you in Vegas at Mayweather Gym living the disciplined life, or are you running around hanging out in Florida with Adrian Broner?
Right.
And that will dictate the outcome of that fight, I think, largely. But Eddie Reynoso, Canelo's trainer, I mean, they were making arguments for him being the best trainer in the game right now. I find it hard to make an argument against that. I mean, Canelo is making very skilled boxers look ordinary. You see Andy Ruiz is trying to have a career resurgence. He has moved himself down there. This is a guy that knocked out Anthony Joshua, one of the biggest names in boxing, and became a unified heavyweight champion. An unbelievable fighter, has realized the value in the Reynoso-Canelo camp and has moved and gotten himself situated with them. Garcia is down there with them. They have a lot of special stuff going on right now. Canelo seems to have taken him under his wing. That with Eddie being the head trainer and overseeing him, I do agree that as far as improvements in between fights, there's nobody better than Ryan right now. There are fighters that I believe are better skilled than Ryan, but he's closing the gap on them quicker than anybody.
Absolutely. And we can't speak about this division and the rising stars at 130, 135 in boxing and not mention Devin Haney. I think, him and Ryan Garcia have a lot of respect for each other. They're both very skilled. That would be a very fun fight to see. I think the DAZN's going to keep them away from each other for a little while longer just because they've got some interest in both of them. They're going to let them go, and then right by the end of their contracts, I think we'll see them get paired up. That's going to be the stylistic matchup to really see for the 130, 135 rising stars.
Yeah, it was a bit strange to me to see Haney in the crowd and then Garcia say, I like Haney, he's my friend, I want to fight him, but I want to fight Tank first. Yeah. And then everybody started booing Haney for some reason. It was very strange. I'm like, it's weird. Like Tank is not there in the crowd. Haney is. I felt like it was kind of set up for them to have a moment there and face off or something.
It was an awkward moment. Yeah. And it was the only moment more awkward than that was the look on Oscar De La Hoya's face whenever Ryan Garcia and Canelo would come together in the ring. Because there's this weird love-hate triangle that's taking place right now in Golden Boy and Canelo, and you saw Canelo get released from his deal there, and Ryan's still with Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya, but he's very much so a part of Team Canelo, so he's like torn between a rock and a hard place, and you can tell that Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya have some beef.
Yeah,
that's
to say the
lingering. And Ryan Garcia is stuck between the two of them because that's his promoter. Obviously, he's good friends with Oscar De La Hoya. They've had their back and forths, but they're still working together as far as business goes. And him and Canelo, he's like his little brother. So it was just very awkward to see the stuff in the ring.
Oscar De La Hoya looks at Canelo like a husband looks at an ex-wife who cheated on him and took the house. And Ryan Garcia is the kid that went with him. I mean, it was that awkward last night. I was like, this is bizarre.
Yeah.
And it is like, you can't fake body language.
You're right.
You know, and those two do not like each other. That was not just a business transaction coming to an end. The awkwardness between Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo after that fight could be sliced with a butter knife. It was so thick.
Yeah, that was bizarre. And like you said, you can't fake the body language. Canelo acted weird when Ryan was embracing Oscar, and Oscar acted equally or more weird when Ryan and Canelo were taking their pictures together and doing all that.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing about it.
We can't be the only people that
Ryan,
saw that.
Don't jump up and wrap your legs around everybody next to it.
We call that jumping guard in jiu-jitsu, and Garcia.
You don't want to be a guard puller.
You don't want to be a guard puller. You don't want to do that. It looks weird. And I think after a vicious KO, you can't be jumping.
You don't want to be pulling guard after a KO like
jumping
that.
Into your buddy's lap. But we'll let it slide for this fight.
Guys, thanks so much for watching. Please check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And we'll see you next time, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Peace.